So my name is Lindsay Grace. I'm the director of American University's Game Lab and Studio. One of the things that's interesting about it is it was just ranked in Princeton Review's top 25 graduate programs. And we'll actually be doing a booth or a table at the arcade this Saturday. So if you're interested in our work, you can just stop by there and see. And the fundamental question that sort of precipitated this presentation was, how do you create impact, right? How do you actually create change? We're at a Games for Change conference. What does that mean? And then my own view, my own experience in the 10 plus years that I've been doing this work is that I think it's through experience. And what I think is really interesting is that exhibition is experience. So the idea is really that you can create impact through exhibition, through actually showing this work. So instead of bringing the people to the games, what I think a lot of people ought to do is actually bring the games to the people, right? There's your mantra for the day. Bring the games to the people. I'll print t-shirts later. In terms of impact, I really do think impact comes from exposure and from experiencing something new. So I come to you sort of as an exhibitor and as an artist and as a curator. So as an artist, I've shown my work in more than 14 states over 25 events. I've also shown it mainly in North America, Brazil, Europe, and Asia. And the venues that I've shown my work have varied from places like the Art Science Museum in Singapore, to the Palais de Congrès in Paris, to Sarah Bryn and Lee Tussman's exhibition called Punk Arcade in Little Berlin in Philadelphia, to environments like the SB Games Conference, which is a sort of academic industry hybrid in Rio, to things like Artscape, which basically attracts about 250,000 people over a weekend, and it's a completely free event in Baltimore. Just sort of the more intimate spaces like the Games Learning Society's annual exhibit around the conference, Games Learning Society Conference, to events like FILE, which is basically an internationally curated event with a sort of much larger scale. I've also curated and co-curated several exhibits. So I was the main curator behind Blank Arcade, which happened in Salt Lake City, and is basically a Digital Games Research Association aligned art exhibit event. As well as this upcoming DIGRA will be doing the similar activity in Lunenburg, Germany. Likewise, along with MagFest, Smithsonian, Art Plus, and Chris Totten, and the IGDA DC, we organized this event, and Games for Change, we organized this event we called Indies from the Middle, which is really about having 4,000 people at the Smithsonian American Art Museum at a pop-up arcade. And I've also done smaller events like Make Me an Offer in Chicago with Nancy Rosenheim, and then done these sort of creative showcase co-chairs. This is an example of the Advances in Computer Entertainment Technology Conference upcoming in Malaysia that I'm co-chair on. And I've done my own solo exhibits as well. So given that, I'd like to offer you basically lessons learned over 8 years of exhibiting and curating in less than 8 minutes. So get ready. So basically think of this as suggestions for social impact through exhibition. 8 years in less than 8 minutes. And really this is a collection of observations both from my own experience and from what I've seen others do. So I really like the work that Sarah Bryn does, Lee Tussman, Ben Walsh. These are all people who've been doing these sorts of activities for years as organizers. So the first is to choose a location and choose it well. So high traffic helps. I'll give you an example. I rented a space in this enormous warehouse to do critical gameplay. And I showed it in this area called Pilsen, which is not a high trafficked area at all, and had about 4,000 square feet to use as an exhibition space, which is plenty of space, but I only attracted about 100 people from the public, just over 100 people from the public. Compare that to something like the Smithsonian American Art event where we've got 4,000 people, and you see there's a very different experience, and a lot less advertising actually. So instead of bringing the people to the games, again, I really do believe in bringing the games to the people. So as an example, when I was at the Istanbul Biennale, one of the things I noticed is they were very good about inserting these games in spaces that people walked through. So this interstitial game is a nice opportunity for you. And then as a very sort of specific anecdote, so we chose Anjali Deshmukh's work, which is a kind of installation piece around how people network. And one of the things we did was we really made sure to show it in a high traffic, high impact area. So this particular game, partly because the medium that she uses, got a lot of traffic at DIGRA's Blank Arcade. But if you compare it to something like So Reap, which required its own room, I'd say maybe 15 or 20 people ventured and took the extra effort to go see this particular piece. So ultimately, it's hard to create impact if it's hard to find. Pretty obvious, right? And we could sort of insert whatever tree falling in the wood analogy you would like. Hello, can anybody hear me? But you get the idea. So lesson 2 is about being attractive. So it sounds kind of vague, and I'll unpack it for you. Often the games that are good for you sometimes taste like it, and we know that, and we accept that. And we talk about chocolate-covered broccoli, we talk about grape-flavored medicine, and it sometimes feels like this, right? It's like, no, take this, it'll be great for you. And I think with social impact, there are some tricks that I've seen work very well. The first is to lure people in with familiar conventional games. People want to know that there are a wide range of games, and if you tell them there's going to be a copy of Pac-Man as a cocktail version available, they'll come. And then they'll see the other great social impact games and say, oh, cool. MagFest has helped us a lot in this arena. They basically offer these rare consoles as part of some of the stuff that we do. And if you don't know MagFest, it's basically the music and games festival that happens in Washington, D.C., about 12,000 people. And they've been very good about it, and it's really attracted folks. The basics of attraction, if you allow me to sort of offer that, is that things like cabinets attract. That's because, ultimately, unique experiences attract. The reason I am, when we were talking about theater a minute ago, the reason that I am going to try and go somewhere and experience something that I could have downloaded is because you're offering a unique experience. So I love the UCLA Backpack Game Arcade, right? It's a brilliant piece. And I love what Sarah Brin and Lee Tussman did with DIY arcades, making arcade boxes out of cardboard boxes. And I think it's really important that you notice that experiences limited to the exhibit tend to attract. That's why they come to the exhibit. Not to sit in front of a standard PC that they could do at home. So rare interfaces, so this is my game, Big Huggin', where you hug a giant teddy bear to help him past his obstacles. And then the Oculus Rift, both of these images were taken from the Smithsonian event that we did, and ultimately those were the things that had lines, because they were the thing that you couldn't do elsewhere. Lesson 3, know what kind of event you were organizing. So I'll go very quickly here. Generally, I have this spectrum between showcase or art exhibit. I categorize showcases as arcade audiences. So they expect noisy, high energy, raucous environments. And so what you're constantly doing is you're trying to attract them in an already noisy space. So the idea of having things that are visually and automatically sort of compelling is really important. On the other end of the spectrum is what you sort of consider the conventional art exhibit audience, which is a bit quiet. And the expectation is that you have a kind of an audience that may hesitate to touch. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but definitely quiet and thoughtful. So quiet and thoughtful work, like my game Wait, works much better in that environment. I would never try to show it in an arcade environment because people simply wouldn't get it and wouldn't want to get it. There are lots of exciting, loud things going on. Why would I want to slow down? Likewise, this is the same sort of experience that I saw at places like the Art Science Museum. Lesson 4 is about picking good partners. So again, I mentioned MagFest. I think they were a great partner for this kind of activity. Games for Change was spectacular when they'd contributed to that larger Smithsonian event that we had done. And then we also partnered with the IGDA, DC, in order to just bring in a larger audience and bring in some developers so that you could get that perspective. And on that end, I think it's really essential that you have a venue rep. So at the Smithsonian, it was Kaylin. She was essential to making the thing happen. And then at Blank Arcade, it was Corin, who's an EAE faculty member, and on ground. They give you that kind of info that you really need. Lesson 5 is that you've got to document your work well. Artists know this. Sometimes people who are organizing the events don't. So get a good photographer or videographer. So I'll give you an example. So this is an image taken by Stacey Storms when Big Huggin' was in Paris. And this is another image taken by someone else. This is the image they used for some of the press, because that was the image they had. That doesn't show nearly as well as something like this. And when the final documentation, the press around it is generated, they use the images that they have available. So you should produce images that are worth using. I'd also suggest that you consider a publication. So I actually do exhibit catalogs for some of the shows that I do, so people can go back and see the images and the context under which these things were collected and exhibited. So it's part of the archive. And you can view that at Critical Gameplay if you'd like as well. And then lastly, I'd like to make one suggestion about making sure it works. I strongly suggest that when you organize these sorts of events that you actually do a pre-test. So I'm a big fan of doing test, run, and judge, which basically forces people to demonstrate their work. You evaluate their work in an environment that's appropriate for the kind of audience that you're trying to engage. And with 20 seconds left, I'd like to say thanks to all the people who've sort of contributed to this throughout the years, as well as my own work. And general thank you.